Hello and welcome to Insurance Business TV, where we're going to focus on challenges in the claims process in professional risks lines of insurance. We've got Nina Croft. She's Northern Manager of Financial, Executive and Professional Risks for WTW. She's in Auckland. Welcome back, Nina.
Thanks, Danny. It's been a pleasure to be back.
Yeah, nice to have you on. What are a couple of the most common causes that you see that delay professional risks claims? And I guess to start with, I mean, it's probably hard to generalize, but typically how long does a professional risk claims process take in your experience?
A little bit of a difficult question to answer, as you can understand. Each claim is different, but usually we, in the professional risk space, compared with other insurances, we don't have too many delays generally. So usually it's the period when insurers are gathering sufficient background information from the client to enable them to accurately consider indemnity under the policy. So the length that it takes for indemnity positions to be known it can vary. So every claim is very sort of fact specific. So, but most insurers are proactive in communicating their positions as soon as they have the required information or understanding of the matter, and also understand the client's liability exposure and the policy response. So generally, that's where we would see any sort of delays. Of course, there can also be delays where a client has thought that they can deal with something themselves first, and then things go awry, and then they notify the insurers, which again, it has to then go through that process to determine indemnity and to ensure that insurers' positions haven't been prejudiced. So the role of the broker is very important then to educate client on specific notification requirements under PI policies, which are very specific, and also the impacts of non-notification of those. So.
Yeah, I mean, if I can just push you on the time it takes a little more. I mean, so is it typical they take, I mean, this can be quite complicated. So I mentioned several weeks is perhaps a mean for this sort of thing, or is that a long time, several weeks?
Well, in terms of determining indemnity, it can potentially take up, depending on how much information needs to be gathered. Sometimes things can be a lot more straightforward, so indemnity can be determined a lot quicker, but other times it can take, a couple of weeks or so. Once that is determined and the claim moves, it will then depend on the specifics of the claim. These claims can often run for a very, very long time, depending on the matter, or they can be fairly quickly resolved. It's a very difficult question because liability claims can be quite complex at times. Yeah, because you're not dealing with tangibles as such. It's intangibles and alleged losses suffered by third parties, because generally a PI claim would be a client alleging that due to your misadvice or non-advice or incorrect advice, they have now suffered a financial loss, which has impacted them. Then that needs to be sort of run through and determined. Did our client give incorrect advice? Were they in the wrong? But all of these things will often take legal counsel to be appointed to determine. Often insureds might not have done anything wrong, but it still takes time to defend their position in the instance of a claim. So it's very hard to give you a definitive answer about how long these things can take.
That makes complete sense in how you've explained it. I mean, the policy wordings, are they kind of the crucial debating point in this process? Are the ambiguities in the policy wording often the cause of delays, or is that not the case?
Not necessarily, Danny. Again, liability or professional indemnity policies, I guess the most common clause that can cause some ambiguity is there's a refund of fees exclusion generally in PI or professional indemnity policies, where a third party might say, well, I would like to have the fees that I've paid you refunded because you've been negligent in the advice that you've given me, or I don't want to pay those fees now. PI policies won't respond to that because they're not there to refund fees. But if often those allegations or the reason that the client don't want to pay the fees is because they allege some sort of negligence has happened. Now, if insurers will often take a literal application to their policy wording, so if the negligence claim is quantified by the amount of the fees paid, then they will not consider the claim under the policy. However, if there's a broader or a genuine unwillingness for the client to pay the fees or to receive because they see there's a much bigger issue at stake and that they have suffered a financial loss, then insurers will look at that claim because then there's obviously more to the matter rather than just the client being disgruntled and simply not wanting to pay fees.
What can be the main communication breakdowns between brokers, insurers, insureds, and the other parties involved in this process?
Sometimes, I guess, when we're in train with a claim, the broker can sometimes get left out of communications when legal counsel is appointed, and they can be left out of the strategy to defend or settle a claim, which can result in a client feeling a little bit as though the broker is not interested in the course of defense of the claim, which is not the case because the outcome of the claim is very much a time when a broker's value is measured. So it's just, up to the broker to ensure that where legal counsel has been appointed, because generally legal counsel will liaise with the insurer. They'll go back and forth, and the insurer will generally keep the broker informed, but it is for the broker to ensure that they are included in all the communications between the legal counsel and the insurer so that they can have some input and can keep the client updated with with how the matter is progressing. Of course, the client will have a good idea of how the matter is progressing, given that they will be talking to the lawyers that have been appointed to assist them in the matter. But it is also good for the broker to continue to be informed so they can work alongside that process with the client, and particularly where there's no requirement initially for insurers to maybe engage with the clients at a particular time because they're, gathering their information, etc., for the broker just to be in touch with that client and to assure them that, things are progressing the way they need to be progressing.
You mentioned the claims are obviously an important part of a broker's work. Are you finding that this is taking up more of your time these days compared to early in your career? Or brokers even more involved now than they were when you started in the whole claims process?
I think we've always been involved in the claims process, and it's very important for brokers to be involved in the process, in the claims process, to have an understanding of what's going on. Of course, we've got a lot of broking houses have some excellent claims teams, so we will be dealing with the underwriters, but our claims specialists will be dealing with the claims people at the underwriters or the insurers, and they've got really good relationships with those. So our engagement with underwriters and our claims specialists with the claims teams is, I guess, a good round catch-all, but that doesn't mean that the broker is removed from the claim. We're very much involved and have an understanding of what's going on so that we can communicate and keep in touch with our clients. Of course, our claims specialists do the same. They do the direct contact with the client, but we're always on the sidelines ensuring that we know what's going on so that we can reassure the client as well too.
There are quite a lot of new regulations coming into force in New Zealand, and I'm just wondering if there's something in particular that you're watching in the regulation space that you think will impact the claims process, I suppose, in particular in professional industry.
Well, yes, sorry, Danny, I've just sort of jumped in because I had something right at the top of my mind when you were talking there. Yes, absolutely. The Resource Management Act, or the RMA as we refer to it, we love to use acronyms in this business. There are changes to that act which mean that fines are no longer insurable. Those changes are immediate. So those will impact on statutory liability claims particularly. We are yet to get a feel of how insurers are going to handle the current claims that are in train, where they are no longer financially impacted by future fines that may be imposed. So it's very, very new. The impacts are immediate, but yeah, it's yet to play out. It's yet to play out for us to get a good feel and understanding how the insurers will respond to it.
Yeah, one to keep an eye on. And just lastly, if there was a way you could improve the claims process, what's one thing that would help to sort of make it more efficient if you could enforce it right now?
I'd say that there are fewer indemnity issues under professional risks policies than other classes of business. The issues that arise are often around the agreement on the appointment of panel lawyers. So insurers will often have a panel of lawyers that they will use in the event of a claim. They would appoint one of those panel lawyers to a particular claim who may have particular experience or expertise on the matter, but maybe ideally presenting the client with a selection of possible panel lawyers that they could deal with, so that they have some control over who they are dealing with, during which can be sometimes a very lengthy process. So that's what I'd say. Often insurers, at their discretion, they will appoint one of their panel lawyers, but potentially if we can present our clients with an option of a few, so that they feel that they have some control over who's representing them.
Nina, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Danny. It's been a pleasure to be back.
Yeah, good to have you on. And Nina Croft is Northern Manager of Financial, Executive and Professional Risks for WTW. We were looking at the claims process, the challenges there for professional risk. Thanks for watching Insurance Business TV. Bye for now.